Senator Robert Menendez has been called a crook. Now more charges, and these could stick. He's pleaded not guilty to 14 criminal counts against him, including 8 counts of bribery in his dealings with his friend, a Florida ophthalmologist. The 68-page indictment alleges the senator intervened on behalf of the doctor's 3 girlfriends' visa applications and received nearly $1 million in trips, political contributions, and other perks from the good doctor. Menendez this week took to the cameras and defended himself. Take a listen.
3 years, the Justice Department has pursued allegations based on smears launched by political opponents trying to silence me. Now they have laid out their case. We will finally have an opportunity to respond on the record, in court, with the facts. As I said yesterday, these allegations are false, and I am confident they will be proven false, and I look forward to doing so in court. Thank you.
We are back live on set here at the Fresh Outlook, talking with the Ebru think tank. Jeanette Hoffman, a Republican strategist planning to take over the world. Jackie Guzda from Western Connecticut State University. Bruno Tedeschi, a communications consultant. And joining us live in D.C. is Alan Topol, author of the book Washington Lawyer. And joining us via Skype is Peter Ticktin, a senior partner with Ticktin Law with more than 43 years of experience. I will begin with you, sir. Tell me a little bit about the case against Robert Menendez. How will he defend himself against these charges?
Well, you know, we keep hearing his denials that he's and that he's just helping a friend. I think more important than that is, was he acting within the scope of his responsibilities as a senator? You know, yes, what he did was probably not smart, and certainly he violated the Caesar's wife syndrome, that not only must a senator not be dishonest, but he must appear to be honest. But the fact of the matter is here, what did he do? His scope is that he votes on bills, and he votes in committees, and he has certain responsibilities that fill his office as a senator. And you pay him do that, and that's bribery, to vote your way, and that would be bribery. But to have him do something else that's not within his scope is probably going to be very hard for the government to be able to say, yes, this is bribery. In other words, you know, let's just say he decided to help me to become a member of a Rotary Club, and he uses his influence because he's an important man, he's a senator, and he says, I recommend Peter Ticktin, and he puts that into a letter, and that helps me become a member of the Rotary Club. But that's not, if I paid him to do that, that wouldn't be bribery, because I'm not asking him to use his office where he actually has the power to implement legislation.
So you're basically saying if he was the guy issuing visas, he'd be in a lot of trouble, but since he's just using his importance and his political position to help maybe lean on the people who do issue those visas a little bit, he really hasn't done anything that wrong.
Right, because he's not being paid to supervise those people, and they can, as they did, they can ignore him.
All right.
Just, who is this guy? He's a senator telling me what to do. If he were the president of the United States, if he were somebody authorized to tell these people what to do and took money to do that, that would clearly be bribery.
Let's turn to Jeanette Hoffman. Jeanette, yeah. Menendez for years has been accused of being a crook, as I said in our intro.
Sure.
It is also possible that people are trying to hamstring him just because they don't like his politics. I mean,
Sure. I mean,
because this 68-page indictment really doesn't seem to have a lot of meat, as Peter Ticktin just said.
So here's my opinion of this. First of all, Senator Menendez, when you saw the press conference / rally that he had the other day, he was very indignant, like he had done nothing wrong. But I think what the Justice Department did was they compiled in this indictment 68 pages with examples of how Senator Menendez acted improperly, and then a timeline of the gifts that he received from Dr. Melgen and the timeline of how he acted on his behalf, whether it ranged from contacting the U.S. Department of Health on Medicare issues, the Department of State arranging for visas. It goes on and on. So I think that what the Justice Department did, it's very hard to prove bribery, right? There's no smoking gun, but I think they established beyond reasonable doubt that Senator Menendez was guilty of acting improperly.
As all politicians are, it seems.
Well, let me do my Captain Renault impression from Casablanca. You know, I'm shocked, absolutely shocked.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. I think with Menendez is we have two cases essentially. We have the legal case and we have the public relations case. And I think what the Justice Department outlined in the indictment was you know, there was a lot of salacious detail in there. The Brazilian girlfriends, you know, the
and it was almost headlined like they were Menendez's girlfriends.
Well,
if you looked at the CNN headline, it says helps 3 girlfriends. It didn't say other friends.
At first,
Okay.
and then they had to
corrected
clear it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, so he's been accused of untoward behavior. The public relations case, I'm going to actually turn to Jackie on that. Jackie, it seems like his constituents don't mind.
Well, this is New Jersey.
Yeah. Well,
And as you said, he's been accused of being a crook before, and
and reelected.
And
overwhelmingly,
reelected,
yeah.
he got his way out of that. I mean, he's part of Hudson County politics.
Right.
This guy's a real fighter. You know, we know that. He's gonna fight to tooth and nail on this. And I think and I think you're both right, they don't have a lot against him when it comes to bribery. But was this misconduct? Yeah, I think they can slap him kind of hard on the wrist, and that's what the government will get away with. I mean, this, you know, he's going to walk away from
Let's turn to Alan Topol, who is entrenched in the scene in Washington. This almost reminds me of the Buddy Cianci stuff out of Rhode Island, Alan, that this guy is a likable rogue and the people don't care.
Well, I think there's another element too, and I sort of agree with a lot of what Peter said, but the element's friendship. In this political thriller I wrote, The Washington Lawyer, book begins, powerful lawyer lends his beach house to a senator, and for a weekend he goes off with a woman, there's a tryst, something happens. But the point is that friendship and how people interact with their friends and people they know and like is an important part of the Washington mixture. And where I think Peter makes some very good points, I think at the end of the day the government's going to fall flat on its case, because in order to make its case on corruption, it's going to have to prove that the things that the senator did were in return, specifically that there was a quid pro quo coming back from the ophthalmologist. And I don't think they're going to be able to make that out, because people are always doing things back and forth for their friends, meaning politicians, people in the Senate, people in the House, doing it for their friends, family, other people they have relationships with. That's just the way our town of Washington works.
And all government and all business, in the way people lending each other their beach houses
to try to justify this case.
Exactly. Alan, I'm going to turn over to Peter for just a second. Peter, you seem to have convinced a lot of people on this panel that Menendez has not done a lot of wrong. Now let's put you in a different set of shoes now. You're the prosecutor. Tell me how you would tell the people that this man should lose his position and maybe go to jail.
Well, I think we just heard some really good comments about how this man is being destroyed one way or the other. The prosecution has certain responsibilities, and part of that is if somebody is innocent, that not to smear them. You have to wonder, why is he targeted, or is he just somebody that legitimate people are going after? How they would go after, they have to find where he misused his office itself. And from what I'm reading in the papers and the news that's available to me, where there were these 3 different girlfriends of his friend, where he's intervened on a couple of other matters, it certainly doesn't appear that they have a great case. But I'll tell you one thing: the federal success rate in terms of convictions is extremely high. If anybody ever becomes in the target of the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office, generally speaking, it's usually for good cause. I think in reality they probably smell a rat here, and one way or the other, even if he gets off completely legitimately, it could be that his goose is cooked politically.
All right, Jeanette, there are a lot of rats in Washington. Why this rat?
I think Senator Menendez has been under investigation for many years, and for good cause. A couple of points I wanted to point out.
One of those good causes.
One of those good causes. So all these flights on the private jet that Senator Menendez took, I think there were about 17 of them. A couple of them, Senator Menendez was caught on during his election campaign in 2013, I believe. He then reimbursed the cost of those flights. but what about the other 12? So in reimbursing those flights, there's almost an admission of, yes, this was wrong, I need to reimburse this. But then there was about a dozen more that he didn't reimburse. And the concern on the Medicare issue, I think a lot of people aren't really focused on that because there's just so much here. You know, Dr. Milligan was the highest Medicare biller in the nation of doctors. And he was accused of overbilling Medicare, in which Senator Menendez got involved. And to me, that sounds like that could be Medicare fraud, and that's defrauding taxpayers.
And that actually is the stinkiest allegation of all.
I think so.
That smells the most, much more than him getting visas for this guy's girlfriends. Nobody really cares about that. Bruno, this is why people hate politics, because all these guys are so dirty.
But can I just say something in
Yes.
defense of Hudson County politicians? You know, in the old days, they used to take money in brown paper bags, and today, at least we're getting it on American Express reward points, right? So that's a little bit classier, right?
Right, well, people know how to take a bribe when they won't get caught. It's not direct. You hire my son, you hire my daughter, you hire my wife in Chicago to work as a spokesperson for a hospital at $300,000 a year.
Right, but the issue is it's not necessarily what's illegal. Sometimes it's just what's improprietous, right? And so the guys that write these laws make them very difficult to prosecute it. Who wrote these laws about bribe? It's the guys in Congress that wrote it. So they're not going to write something that's going to make it so easy for them to be prosecuted under under gift giving and all these different types of things that happen in Washington, as the culture, as our Washington friend told us about, that this stuff goes on all the time in Washington. That's why I don't think anybody who's a student of American politics, whether it be City Hall, whether it be state governments, or whether it be what happens in Washington, would ever be shocked or surprised about the kinds of things that we're reading about here today.
I think it comes back to what is the definition of friendship, right? And I mean, if you read this indictment, this goes above and beyond, you know, a normal friendship. And there's precedent here because former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell claimed that he had a friendship with a CEO and intervened in their behalf, and he was indicted and convicted on corruption charges. So I think, and the Menendez case is much bigger.
I think we all need a friend like Robert Menendez.
No, what we need, no, I think in politics what you need is, if you're looking for a friend, get a dog.
Jackie, I'll give you the final thought before we go to break. We're coming back to talk more about this.
I think there is more than just McDonald and Menendez, et cetera, as precedent. I think this is just another way to prove that we need campaign finance reform. It's just too easy to influence politicians in this country. We have to do something about it.
We'll talk about more on that and other issues involving power corrupting and absolute power corrupting absolutely. More on the scandals and corruption in Washington after this.